Hello, and welcome to this Public Sector Insight Week for Digital Leaders. This presentation is part of a series of events to launch the second edition of our agenda for digital inclusion in Wales, from inclusion to resilience. And I'm Hamish, Laing, Chair of the Digital Inclusion Alliance for Wales. And during the presentation, you'll also be hearing from Jocelle, Lovell from Cwmpas, formerly the Wales Cooperative Centre, Emma Stone from the Good Things Foundation, and Simon Cromwell from the DVLA, which is based here in Wales. But first, a little bit about the Digital Inclusion Alliance. The Alliance comprises over 90 members, organisations across Wales that are working to help make Wales a truly digitally inclusive nation. Predominantly from the public and third sector, we also include some members from the private sector. And these range from very big organisations such as British Telecom, through to health boards and trusts, local authorities. But perhaps the key group of members are our smaller organisations working in local communities across Wales and doing fantastic work together. The purpose of the Alliance is to bring together all those organisations working in digital inclusion to provide support, coordination, and the sharing of best practice and learning, as well as to influence and lobby both Welsh and UK governments. This is the second edition of our agenda that we've published this week, building on the work of the first, and we've reissued it as a new edition because we wanted to have the opportunity to look back and see what had changed since we first published 2 years ago. And there has been a lot of change. Of course, we've had the pandemic, which has driven the adoption of digital services, particularly in the public sector, and therefore had a profound impact on those who are digitally excluded. But encouragingly, there's also been a lot of progress in digital inclusion. We spent a lot of time when we produced our first edition deciding which our very best or greatest priorities were. And we settled on 5. And we've reviewed those to see what progress has been made and whether we needed to change our priorities now going forward. We've concluded that, with the exception of a few minor adjustments, that actually they remain our top priorities. And although there has been a lot of progress, there is still a lot more to do. And so during this presentation, we're going to talk to you about what the priorities are now, and a little bit about some of the excellent work that has happened in the previous 2 years in each area. One of the changes we've made is to take co-production out of being a single priority area and to make it a cross-cutting theme. We've done this because we believe that user research, user-centered design, and co-production really should be the bedrock of everything that is done in digital inclusion. There is a real risk, I think, that people who are digitally included think they know best what people who are digitally excluded or digitally challenged require. And actually all our learning and experience is that by working with organisations such as those in our alliance, who are very close to our community, they really can understand what the user needs are and what digitally excluded people would like to see in order to help them get online. And we are prioritising and targeting those people those groups in our society who are most digitally excluded. And so during the presentation, we're going to just run through the 5 priority areas one at a time. There's an opportunity for you to post any questions or comments you have in the chat, and one of our team is on hand to answer those or respond to them. Please do. We'd love to hear what you're doing and what you think about what we're doing. And at the end, we'll give details if you want to get in touch to have a longer conversation, or indeed if perhaps you'd like to join the Alliance if you work in Wales. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Jocelle Lovell, who's going to talk to us about priority 1.
Right, okay. Hi, everyone, and thanks, Hamish. So priority 1 for the Alliance is around embedding digital inclusion across all sectors. So I'm not going to talk too specifically about many areas because that will be covered across the other priorities. But I guess for me, first and foremost, you know, the Alliance is the catalyst about being able to actually achieve priority 1. As Hamish has already mentioned, one organisation alone is not going to create a digitally included nation in Wales. It's going to take everyone and a concerted effort across all sectors to make that happen. So I guess the overarching theme around priority 1 is how we work across those sectors to ensure digital inclusion is embedded strategically and operationally and isn't an afterthought or somebody else's problem to solve. So in terms of the outcomes, they haven't really changed a lot between the first edition and the second edition of the agenda. They still are pretty much the same, but some of the things that have been achieved over the last 12-18 months as part of the Alliance and the organisations within it and the work of Digital Communities Wales, I just wanted to kind of pick up on a couple of those just to give you examples of what has been achieved to date. So obviously there's the Centre for Digital Public Services and the Digital Services Standard Wales that considers digital inclusion. There's the mapping exercise that was commissioned by Welsh Government and the CDPS that now sits on Data Map Wales that covers kind of all sectors, and it's around basically anyone offering support for digital inclusion, and that map is going to kind of improve as we go on and get more data onto that. There's the Newid partnership, which is made up of Cwmpas, WCVA and Promo Cymru, and that's specifically working with the third sector to support the digital transformation, and then links into DCW for the inclusion side of it. An example from the housing sector, we've been working with housing associations across the whole of Wales to support the development of the eCymru portal. I won't say too much about it because I've got a feeling Caddy might touch on that later on in the session, but that's a really great example of how the sectors come together to support inclusion of tenants and sharing of resources. Libraries, as another example, we've been doing some pilots with different library services across Wales and completing skills audits with the staff, and on the back of that rolling out a training programme that's available to the whole of the library staff across Wales. Health, Hamish has already touched on that one. Actually, I was going to say, you know, it's great that we've got Anthony on board with the steering group for the Alliance, which is fantastic. Another piece of work that we've been doing in terms of health, but again, I'm not going to touch too much on it because I know Hamish will pick up on other pieces of work. But DCW have been part of the private beta testing of the NHS Wales app. And on the back of that, we're going to be delivering a roadshow across Wales to support people and communities in being able to kind of use the app and access it. Another bit that Audit Wales have done a report which is due to be launched in March around digital inclusion in Wales. So there'll be some really interesting findings in that. And then the private sector is probably the one area we haven't done so much as across the Alliance or through the Digital Communities Wales programme. But what we have done is commissioned some research to look at the impact of digital exclusion on small businesses in Wales and as a result on its customers. Once we get that report finalised, which should be due in the next month, then we'll be able to bring the recommendations to the Alliance and share those with you. But we'll be having a big focus on working with the private sector in the next 12 months. And that's priority 1 in a nutshell.
Thanks very much, Jo. And then I'll just quickly talk about priority 2. So priority 2, you will recall, is about health and social care. And if I could have the slide, Sarah, please. It's about mainstreaming digital inclusion in health and social care. And again, you know, it's very striking how how much progress there has been made in this area, both in terms of the service which is delivering more and more of its services digitally, and that is only going to get a greater pace. But also the engagement that we're now getting from health and social care to really understand the important role they have to play in digital inclusion. And it's just not acceptable for them to kind of roll out digital services and just assume that somebody else will help patients and indeed staff to use those services. So we've seen that a number of health organisations have now come on board and have got digital inclusion programmes or teams or a focus. So Digital Health and Community Wales, the news, or what was news, not so new now, Special Health Authority for digital in health and social care. We've seen Betsy Cadwallader including digital inclusion in its work and its strategy. Velindra University NHS Trust, Haldar, who really led the way by appointing a digital inclusion manager and team and a digital inclusion program. And it was great that we were able to speak at their initial conference, their inaugural conference recently in Carmarthen. Health Education and Improvement Wales, and in fact all health boards and trusts now are beginning to understand the importance of this, and then of course importantly Social Care Wales as well. So we're working very closely with Social Care Wales to understand the needs of their workforce and the citizens they care for. So lots going on in this very important area, and with that I'm going to hand on to Emma, who's going to talk about priority 3.
Hi everybody, so priority 3 is about addressing data poverty as a key issue, and this just continues, if we think back a year ago, to feel as important, if not more important, than when we launched the first edition. And certainly the pressures on households and those supporting them through the voluntary community and private and public sectors are just increasing. So there's a real importance to this priority still, and we've updated it to reflect some of the work that has happened, including work that Alliance members have been involved with. Several of you will have been at a really excellent quarterly meeting of the network where people spoke really powerfully about the impact this is having on people that they and their organisations are supporting. And several of you also will have responded to invitations to join the National Data Bank, to support with the guide around supporting people with data connectivity, and also to promote the Help for Households campaign as part of raising awareness of social tariffs. We're still waiting to hear on the latest data about what uptake is of social tariffs, but it feels really important, and there was a sense of this is an area where an alliance of cross-sector organisations with reach out into different communities across Wales can really help to raise awareness of support that is available. But alongside that, what you'll see in the outcomes is also a sense that we're not only wanting to think about what are the short-term ameliorations, we're also wanting to contribute to developing some of those longer-term solutions around data, but also around things like more sustainable access to devices. It just feels as though this is a priority outcome where the Alliance has absolutely made a contribution, and where we need to continue to make an important contribution, looking to the long term as well as the immediate circumstances. I'll hand over next for priority 4.
Emma, thank you very much. And so now Simon is going to talk about priority 4.
He remembers to unmute himself. Yeah, thank you. I'm Simon. I'm from DVLA, and I think in the post-COVID economy especially, there's a massive need for basic digital skills and digital skills for work. And we, in a transforming organisation with over 5,000 staff, are facing that challenge ourselves as we move more services online and change the way we work internally. Even basic digital skills are a focus for us, and obviously externally in households or in workplaces. You can give people the tools they need. Data poverty can be addressed, but if they haven't got the skills to use them, there's still a massive barrier. So priority 4 is about digital skills for work and life in the economy, removing those barriers for people who may have the technology, may not have it, but still giving them the skills so they don't see it as a barrier, and it's accessible and an opportunity to embrace technology for all. I think I was saying to Hamish earlier that technology has given us some great things, it's taken away our snow days, but I think we know how important it is in our lives, and it's still a massive concern where people don't have that access because they don't have the skills. So priority 4 has been widened. We've widened the scope of this to digital skills and work for life. And there's a lot of great work that's gone on. So I'll go over some of the highlights, some of the achievements so far, which have been the UK Community Renewables Fund has provided a channel and resources for partnerships who are interested in digital skills pilot projects. And then several Digital Inclusion Alliance Wales members have been involved in supporting the development of approaches to digital skills through this. And then the new UK Shared Prosperity Fund is also a route to continue this work, and the Alliance is working with the Growth and City Region deals to ensure digital inclusion remains a priority in this funding stream. There's been some great work by Good Things Foundation to improve the learner experience across both English and Welsh language versions. They've been working with the Cwmpas team on improvements to Learn My Way, and this is offering free online courses for beginners to help them to develop digital skills. I think Joe mentioned Newid earlier, being developed and obviously coordinated by WCVA, Cwmpas and Pro Cymru in consultation with voluntary sectors to ensure maximum impact for that work. I know Digital Communities Wales are continuing their great work delivered by Cwmpas, partnered by Swansea Union Good Things Foundation, offering free digital support to organisations across Wales. And since the agenda's publication in March 2021, DCW has conducted digital skills audits with a number of authorities, directorates, third sector orgs, gathering insight on over 2,600 staff and volunteers as of February 2023. So a massive piece of work that's happening there. So I suppose you can see there's a lot of progress being made, but we're under no illusion there is still a massive challenge still ahead, and a lot more to be done as we focus on priority 4 over the next year. I'll just pass on for the next one. Thank you.
Simon, thanks so much indeed, and a really essential and impressive amount of progress, I think, in that area, but there will always be a lot of work to do. Which brings it on to the 5th and final priority, which we're very excited about, particularly because we called for it in our first edition, and it's been fantastic to hear that call heard. And so Emma is kindly going to talk about that.
Yes, so priority 5 is about implementing a new minimum digital living standard for Wales. And as Hamish said, this is just such an area where the Alliance, we can feel really proud of having called for this and also been involved in developing this throughout. So a minimum digital living standard is really about setting a standard, setting a benchmark that can be agreed about what a household needs in order to be digitally included. And building on what Simon's just said there, this is a holistic approach, so it has to think about the skills as well as about the data connectivity, as well as having a suitable device. And there just is no set standard for that. As Hamish said right at the start, one of the things that we did in this priority area, this had been where it was about the minimum digital living standard and co-production, but we all agreed that co-production needs to be a cross-cutting theme, but absolutely important to reflect here that this standard has been developed, defined, every item in it has been deliberated by members of the public through a series of focus groups using a really robust methodology. So although co-production it really lives up to that co-production as a theme. And also the research that the Welsh Government commissioned, which we'll hear more about later in this meeting, also then was involving and listening to a number of stakeholders and several of you as Alliance members. Thank you for taking part in that stakeholder research and in the surveys as well. So in terms of the next stages, Simeon will be talking about phase 2, which has been commissioned, and also the work that is happening alongside for a UK minimum digital living standard. But I think it's kind of the focus of the outcome now is really about how this can be used in Wales by Alliance members through our networks to really understand, use this as a catalyst for coordinating action across data devices and skills. So that's where the outcomes are really about moving into talking about and developing strategy, policies, some clear recommendations for the Welsh Government, for the UK Government, but also for other stakeholders, ourselves included.
Thanks very much, Emma. So I hope you will agree that there's been a lot achieved in the last 2 years in Wales, but also that we have identified the right priorities for the future. Please do let us know in the chat if you think we've missed something really important. Our plan as an alliance is to continue to grow, to continue to have greater influence, and to continue to work across Wales with our most excluded citizens to help them get online if they want to. We remain an independent voice, and in fact we are an aggregation of 90 organisational voices, and we do our very best to make sure that we're making sure that their voices are heard across Wales, influencing policymakers, government, third sector and public sector organisations, and also the private sector, all of whom have a part to play in making Wales digitally inclusive. So just a reminder, there's still a chance to post some comments and questions in the chat. But if you would like to know more, please do download our report using these QR codes, or indeed the URLs that are on the screen now, or get in touch either by email us or through Twitter using the handle there. Thank you very much indeed for your attention, and I hope you found it interesting.